Hello, my name is Victoria. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're finding this channel for the first time. I am here today to talk about my March books that I completed, and also books that I have my eye on for April, or I hope to complete in April, but it's definitely a bit of a pile of shame for April. So anyways, we'll get into that. I'm getting ahead of myself. But first, I had a wonderful March reading month. Like the best reading month I've had in forever. I don't know if it's because I had a couple weeks off of work. That definitely helped. I had spring break, so I did get to read a little more than I typically would probably, but I finished 6 books in March, which is unheard of on my channel. I think at like my height of how many books that I finished in a month was maybe 7, and this was like, I don't know, maybe 2019 or 2020. So I have not even gotten close to that number in a really long time. So I don't know, I guess I got my reading mojo back. However, I think 2 of these I had also started in February, so that contributed to the unusually high number of books that I finished in March. So let's jump right into it. The first book that I finished early March was The Long Loneliness by Dorothy Day. And we actually did a live show discussion on this book over on Christy's channel. If you're interested in this book and you want to check that discussion out. This is about Dorothy Day. It's actually her own autobiography, so she is writing this from her perspective. And if you don't know about her, I didn't know about her before I picked up this book. But Dorothy Day was a Catholic social activist and very involved in feeding the poor and the hungry and taking care of the homeless and helpless and just the downtrodden. She really dedicated her life to just helping her common man, and specifically people who had nothing or were living in poverty in New York City. So she also had involvement with the Catholic workers movement and is basically like the founder of that. The Catholic worker movement, and she's the leader of that for more than 50 years in numerous battles of social justice. So this was wonderful. Just the way that Dorothy Day saw the world and saw life and saw her purpose in the world is really inspiring. She was very much an academic as well. She loved reading Dostoevsky. She loved reading the classics, and Tolstoy seems like he was a really big influence on her as well. But just living in the classics and learning about the world through books was not enough for Dorothy Day, which is what I loved about her. She didn't just live in the books. She took these ideas and like took them to the streets. She wanted to do something tangible for her fellow man. She wanted to make her life count on Earth, and I just found her action and her call to action really inspiring. She was really concerned with why do some people have a lot and others have nothing or very little. That was like the burning question for her, and she just took it to the streets, and she wanted to do something to help. So very inspiring lady, worth looking into, worth learning about, worth reading this. I gave this book 4 stars. Next up, I finished The Bullet Swallower by Elizabeth Gonzalez James. This is a new release this year. I think it was released at the end of January. And this is a Western family saga. So in this book, we follow 2 perspectives. The first one is Antonio Sonoro in 1895, and then the second one is Jaime Sonoro in 1964. I had to look up the character names because I never remember character names if it's been too long since I finished it. So Antonio and Jaime, and so Antonio is the grandfather, and then Jaime is the grandson. And so this is set around the Texas-Mexico border and the conflict that's happening around that time at the turn of the century in 1895. So Antonio Sonoro is a bit of an outlaw. He's rather rough around the edges, and he makes some bad choices in life. So he's not really a good guy. So this is not following necessarily a likable character. The grandson is more removed from that, and so he's kind of more immediately likable. You know, he's living after these events, and he's actually a famous movie star, and yeah, you find out more about him. But the grandfather is not a good guy, and you find out about these secrets in the family, things that the grandfather and great-grandfather have done that have consequences, like through their next generation. I will also mention that there's magical realism in this as well, because I know some people hear magical realism and they're like, I'm out. So I did want to mention that as well, but I found the magical realism in this not to be very confusing. Sometimes magical realism, it can feel like it doesn't fit sometimes, or it can feel like it's confusing the story. I didn't think that about this. I thought the magical realism was really seamless, and it's an integral part of the story. I have one beef about this book. It has an epilogue, and you can either do an epilogue well, or it can kind of ruin the book for you. And I would say this epilogue it was real close to ruining the book for me. It didn't ruin the book, but it got real close. There's something about the epilogue that made this book a little cheesy. I wish it hadn't really been there. So I'll just say that. But I'm kind of pretending the epilogue is not there. The rest of the book was phenomenal. I enjoyed the heck out of myself reading this. I will say it's dark and it's violent because of the nature of the setting. It's a Western. It's pretty grim. There's lots of violent actions and horrible things to contend with, and murder and whatnot. So it is a little bit gruesome in certain scenes. I never felt like it was too much for me to handle, but I do think it could be a turnoff for some readers. So go into that, just know that ahead of time, that this is a Western, and it is a gritty Western. But if you can hang with that, if you can hang with the violence, this is a great book. I really, really liked it. For me, the themes of this book and where it went, and like the lessons the characters learned along the way were awesome. It is most certainly an anti-hero story. So I think that might help you decide if you want to read this or not, because some people vibe with the anti-hero and some don't. And so, yeah. I love an anti-hero if it's done well, if it's written well. And Elizabeth Gonzalez James' writing is stellar. I can tell she has serious writing chops just from this book. I want to go back and read her backlist, because if I liked this one as much as I did, I want to see what else she has. But I just thought that this was beautifully crafted. Beautiful writing, truly. Like, the prose is actually what got me to pick this book up. I read just like the first few pages of this book initially, and I was like, okay, yeah, this prose is working for me. So just a really skilled writer. And it's the funniest thing, because I don't even know if I've really read a Western, maybe like one Western, maybe in school or something. I never thought of myself as someone who would like a Western, but I'm so glad that I picked this up. Maybe I need to try more Westerns. I really, really liked this. I gave The Bullet Swallower 5 stars. The next book that I finished was The Adventures of Amina al-Sarafi by Shannon Chakraborty. This is an author who has written the City of Brass trilogy. I think it's a trilogy that's very popular, sort of a booktube darling for a while. You don't hear about it as much anymore, but for a while, City of Brass was everywhere. And so this was a book of the month that I got last year and finally got around to it. This is also the first in a trilogy that is not complete, so know that before you pick it up. This is not a finished trilogy yet. This is the only book we have out right now. This was fun. So this is about a older woman who was this pirate captain in her younger days, and now she's sort of left that pirate life. She has a young daughter at home, and some circumstances come up. Someone knocks on her door one day that brings her back into this pirate life, and she has to leave her daughter behind and then go work out some things. I don't want to say too much because I feel like that's part of the fun of the book, is unveiling all of that. Her backstory as a character becomes more known as you go through this book, and you find out like her dark secrets, her dark past, and it's kind of like Pirates of the Caribbean, but with an older female Johnny Depp. Honestly, that's how it felt. I felt like she was like a female Johnny Depp character, like in the Pirates movies, you know what I mean? The Disney ones. So it's fun. It's a fun time. I did not expect the horror aspect. There is a bit of like body horror in this book that was very icky. It was pretty gruesome and icky to me. I was a little bit like horrified, and in a different way that this is violent, this was like in a more like, I don't know, an ickier way. That's all I'll say about that. But yeah, so there was some like gross, kind of shocking things in this, but again, it's not like the main part of the story, but sort of actually. So the body horror was a surprise. I didn't really like that part of it. However, it is part of the story. So yeah, I liked the main character. I feel like she was fun to follow because she's a different kind of protagonist. She's pretty tough. So this was a fun one for the characters. There's some surprising things with the story and the plot where it goes. It just kind of went in a direction that I didn't really expect, and I liked it. I liked it a lot. I would say I would give it 4 stars right now, but it was really good and it was a fun time. So if you're interested in this, give it a go. I will pick up the sequel whenever it comes out. I'll be looking forward to that. Next up, I finished Yumi and the Nightmare Painter by Brandon Sanderson, and I read this on my Kindle. I have these beautiful editions, but I keep reading them on my Kindle. Maybe because I don't want to get them messed up. I did read this a lot when I was like out and about and on the go. This ended up being my favorite secret project so far. I had heard other people say that, and I was like, we'll see. But yeah, this is I think the strongest of the secret projects thus far that I've read. I haven't read Sunlit Man, so I still need to read that one. And then Brandon Sanderson just said he just wrote another secret project. So I did back the Kickstarter for just the secret project. I didn't get the leather bound. I don't have the leather bound Way of Kings, so I didn't get the leather bound Words of Radiance. But I did back the next secret project, number 5. So he needs to stop writing so fast because I'm not even done with the 4. But I'm at least done with 3 of them now, and this has been my favorite one. So what I ended up liking about this, I liked the setting of this the most out of the 3. I think the setting was the most interesting, and we're also dealing with like a lot more Cosmere things. It's a lot more Cosmere connections in this book. So I really enjoyed that, as far as like a new planet in the Cosmere and all that. I also liked the kind of faux Asian setting, and the noodle shop where a lot of our characters meet at was really fun. The noodle shop owner was really fun. There's some connections to some Stormlight things that happen in this book, which I thought they were fun Easter eggs. But also, I liked the main story of this a lot. The one thing that I didn't always love was there were some cringy scenes. There was some cringiness because there's a bit of a more like romantic element to this book. There's a romance at the center, as you can probably tell from the cover. And some of the scenes, I just don't think Brandon Sanderson always writes romance very well. And the way that he creates like tension between the characters, I didn't always like. There's specifically one scene in mind. But yeah, I don't think that's a strong point as an author. However, what my favorite thing about this book had to be the theme in the end and where our journey takes our characters and the overall theme. This book at the heart is a lot about being an artist and coming to terms with your own art, and also how your art is perceived by others. I really like related to that as a musician as well. I could see and feel the frustration of some of these characters who question their own artistic abilities because like their art is maybe not well received by others. I really related to that, and related to the sentiment of like thinking you're not good enough or wanting to give up because of like some criticism on your art. And so that's kind of a theme of this book that I really enjoyed. I hope that's not a spoiler, but it is sort of a main theme. So I don't know. I don't know if that's considered a spoiler, but it's something that made this book like another level above what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be a 4-star for me, but in the end, I liked what it did so much, and I liked all of the surprises. There's definitely some twists and turns in the Sanderlanche, and I just really liked where it went. I liked the message. I liked that this book surprised me, and it was great. It was great. 5 stars. The next book that I finished in March was Shark Teeth, and I only finished this a few days ago, or maybe 2 days ago. Yesterday? I don't know. Recently. This was for my Patreon, and Christy suggested this one, also for middle grade March. And so we read this and have not discussed it yet, so I'm very curious to see how everybody else liked this book. But I really, really, really enjoyed it. Man, I enjoyed everything. I feel like all of these books I'm just saying I enjoyed, but it's true. I just had a great reading month. So Shark Teeth is about a young lady who's 12 years old, and she has 2 younger siblings, and they are sort of in and out of the foster system. Their mom is struggling with some things, some substance abuse, and as a result has gotten in trouble for neglecting her kids and not taking care of her kids. So they, when we meet them, they've just been reunited with their mom after spending some time in foster homes, and then the mom gets another chance, and so she's getting her kids back, and that's where we start the book, under those circumstances. And so you see what happens from there and how this has kind of affected the family, and what happens after that. So I really, really thought that this was well written. Sherry Winston had a great ability to make me care, and this story is so heartbreaking, and the situation is so heartbreaking, but the way that we dive into the characters, it's told from her perspective. Her name is Sharkita, and it's told from her perspective The way we're in her head, I thought was really effective, following her thoughts. I thought there were some very subtle things that were done well, like the dynamics now between the mom and the kids, and like the complexity of that. So like kind of the complexity of like the kids wanting their mother to be successful, and they're happy to be home and to be together, but also grappling with the hurt and the trauma that their mom is putting them through. You know, it's like this very complex dynamic. So I thought that was just done really, really well in this novel. I had some issues along the way though. My issues stem around the relationship of the school adults with the kids, and I think I'm very sensitive to this kind of thing because I'm a teacher as well, and there were just some things that happened in this book that I don't think would happen, or would just be very unusual to happen, and some things that there was some things that I was like outright like, this is incorrect, this would never happen with a school and an employee. I don't know. I can't go into more than that, but there were some things revolving around school that I didn't like the portrayal of. I will say though, there are many very positive adults in their lives. I think that's one of the things that this book did really well, was show the positive influences at school. And I liked that, because oftentimes when you have teachers in a book, or you have principals in a book, they're often doing, I don't know, they're either negative or they're just not very kind to kids. It's like a very common thing you see, I feel like, in middle grade, is unsupportive adults. And so this book had some very good adult and teacher representations. Does have a bad one though. So I don't know. There were things that made me like raise my eyebrows a little bit. So yeah. But other than that, I would say the only other thing, okay, there is one more thing. The dialogue in this book, I think, is a little bit unrealistic sometimes between the kids. Sometimes the kids sounded a little bit more like adults, and that bugged me a little bit, especially with like some of the things like the 5-year-old sister was saying. Sometimes she just sounded like her dialogue was more grown up than I thought a 5-year-old would be. Also, Sharkita herself has, I think, sometimes more grown-up dialogue, and there was one of her friends, and their dialogue didn't seem authentic sometimes. Sometimes the dialogue between the kids seemed forced, or almost like Sherry Winston wasn't sure how to like portray their actual conversations. I don't know. I think it would also be kind of hard to write that. But again, just because I spend so much time with middle grade age group kids, because that's the age that I teach, I know how they talk, and I felt like this wasn't quite right. So yeah, those are my criticisms. However, I think this was worth reading. I cried at the end, and usually a book has to really pull at my heartstrings for that, and this one did. So I do recommend it. I think it's a really strong middle grade novel about foster kids, about the foster system, and I really enjoyed it. And then finally, just today, I finished The Return of the King by J.R.R. Tolkien. This was a reread for me. I think this is the 3rd time that I've read through The Lord of the Rings, and this was for Tiffany's Patreon book club, which is wonderful. Definitely go check it out. We read lots of good classic books, and so The Return of the King is the final book of The Lord of the Rings, and it's great. I love how it wraps up. I was never really sure about the very, very end, because it does it very differently than the movie. I'll just say that. But this time around, I actually really, really liked the ending. So yeah, I think I actually struggled with this a little bit at the beginning of The Return of the King. I think because I had a little bit more of a bigger gap between the Two Towers and this one, I had some time pass, so I was kind of like, wait, where are we at? Trying to remember like where this book picks up. And also, I did this book on audiobook, which I've never done Lord of the Rings on audio before, and I found that to be slightly a struggle with certain parts of the book, because there's like, especially when there's a lot of like names and places thrown around, I have a hard time focusing, partly because a lot of the time when I'm listening to a book, I'm also either chasing around a toddler or like doing, I don't know, something or someone. Sometimes I have my audio headphones in, but like my husband will be talking to me also. And then I'll have to like be like, okay, hang on, let me stop it. So, you know, just like the interruptions of life. So sometimes I was like, where am I? So I don't know. I did like the audio experience because I did the Andy Serkis ones and they were great. So no criticism on him at all. Like, it's great narration. However, just the nature of the story, I think I just want to read physically next time. So at least I've done it on audio now and I know what it's like. But next time I will definitely read it physically. But it was just so great to revisit Lord of the Rings. Such a fantastic classic fantasy. If you've never read Lord of the Rings, I implore you, give it a try. I think out of the three, I think The Fellowship was actually my favorite this time around. It's hard to have a favorite though, because it is one story. So there's just beautiful, wonderful moments in each one, and it's hard to pick a favorite. But this time around, I think I had the most fun reading The Fellowship of the Ring. So not to say that I didn't enjoy The Return of the King and The Two Towers. The Return of the King has some of the most beautiful passages. It has a couple of my most favorite passages in the whole series. So this was wonderful. I wouldn't expect anything less. 5 stars. So many 5 stars. 5 and 4. We had nothing. We had no 3 stars this month. That is amazing. Oh my gosh, this video is so long. I still have to tell you what I'm gonna read in April. Okay. We're gonna go through it fast, okay? So in April, for my Patreon, I'm reading what's the name? Hang on. I wrote it down. It's got a long name. The Wonderful Adventures of Mrs. Seacole in Many Lands by Mary Seacole. This sounds so good. This is a classic, and it's about Mary Seacole, who was a Jamaican woman, and it's about her adventures and her life, and that's all I know right now. But it sounds really good. It sounds like she's also like maybe a feisty, sarcastic character, which sounds like fun. Not character. She's a real person. She was a real person. So I'm really looking forward to that. Christy kindly sent me an audio of what's it called? I didn't write this one down, but it was her favorite book of last year. The Case Against the Sexual Revolution. There we go. That's the title. I don't remember the author. But I've listened to Christy talk about this book extensively because she's done like a very detailed review. So definitely go check out her review of it if you want to know more about this. But she sold me on this one. I've been wanting to read it. It sounds so good. And she kindly sent me the audio for my birthday, and I am so grateful to her. So I do want to listen to this. So that'll be more nonfiction in April. That'll be fantastic. I'm getting overwhelmed. Okay, so there's also in April, there's Alcott April, which is hosted by Tiffany and just some other people. I can't remember. I'm not prepared for this part of the video at all. I should have written these things down. But I've never read Little Women. I would like to read Little Women, but it's really big. And so I'm probably not going to read this copy because I'm working on some other things physically. So either the audio for this, if you could recommend a good audio production of Little Women, I'd be curious to know. Or I might do this on my Kindle because I also downloaded it on my Kindle. So I have this cute edition though. I'm not sure it would be very comfortable to read out of because it's like short and fat. Yeah, I don't know. So I probably won't be reading out of this edition, but this edition looks very nice on my shelves. So Little Women is a possibility. I would really like to get to it. I'm also kind of low-key buddy reading Redwall by Brian Jacques, and this is the first book in this series. It's a very long series as well. I wanted to read it for middle grade March, didn't get around to it in March, but I'm buddy reading this with Carolyn, and she doesn't have a booktube channel, but she has a Instagram, so I'll link her down below. Carolyn is wonderful and so kind and so funny. She's really sweet, but we wanted to read this together. Yeah, I haven't read this since I was a kid, so be very, very curious to see how I like it. I have to decide if I'm going to read it physically. I want to read it physically. I really want to. But I don't know. I don't know. The audio for my library is like 12 weeks long. So this is the part of the video where I tell you what a terrible host I've been for Storm Along 2024. I'm supposed to have read this by now. I have not. I'm actually not even that far. I'm only 222 pages in. I should have finished this by now because I should be reading Words of Radiance right now. So obviously, I still need to finish The Way of Kings. This is my main priority in April. As far as like physical reads, I'm just being stubborn because I could have finished this earlier if I had just done the audio, but I'm being stubborn. I don't like the audio narrator. So I'm just not vibing with the audio. I want to read it physically. I know I'll have more fun reading this physically. However, I don't want to read this all year. So I need to make this my priority for April. This should be the only thing I read physically until I finish it. So hopefully I can do that within the first couple weeks of April. That maybe is optimistic. I don't know. I don't know how I'm going to do this yet. But ideally, I should finish The Way of Kings and at least start Words of Radiance in April. I want to start it in April. So that's my goal. That's my goal. We'll see. But if I think I can definitely finish Way of Kings if I only read that physically and I don't read anything else physically until I'm done. So hold me to it. I should not read anything else physically till I finish that. And then these are hopefuls. They're not necessarily likely to happen, but I want to start them in April. I probably won't finish them in April with everything else that I have. But I've been sitting on some books that authors have sent me for review, and I'm feeling real guilty about it because I got these both in the fall. Probably both of them around the same time, actually. And I haven't read them yet. So I need to finish these so that I can do a review. But one of them is Linden Falls by Joshua Hershey. This is a Christian fantasy. I've brought it up on a few TBRs now. And this needs to happen. And then another one that needs to happen is Tribe of the Accord by Sean Michael Stone. Ancient times, like caveman times setting for a fantasy, or I'm not sure if it's fantasy, but it might be. I'm not sure. I should just read it already. Anyways, I hope to at least start these in April so that I can get those going. And then another thing that is likely to be on audio, to be honest, is Royal Assassin by Robin Hobb. I am taking too long to get to this book. I reread the Farseer trilogy book 1. What is that called? It's right behind me. Assassin's Apprentice. I reread Assassin's Apprentice in the fall so that I'll get to this. And I still haven't gotten to this. So I need to do it. And I need to just do it on audio because I'm going to read Stormlight physically. So that's going to take up probably my whole April, to be honest. The only other one that I want to read physically, well, I want to read Mary Sequel on my Kindle, and I want to read this physically. and I want to read this physically. Maybe audio for this one. So yeah, those are the things. Those are the things that I have on the docket for April. It's a lot of things. And April is probably going to be a super busy month for me at work. So yeah, very ambitious. Thank you for watching this very long video today. March was such a good reading month and I'm so thrilled about it. I'm hoping that April will be just as much fun, but let me know if you have any thoughts about any of these books, if you have read any, or if you just want to let me know what you're reading in April. I would love to know. I have other social media links down below in the description box if you want to follow me in other places, and I also have a Patreon if you would like to support this channel in a monetary way. If you made it all the way to the end of this video and you want to leave an emoji, then you can leave a bow and arrow, because there's a little bow and arrow emoji on the back of this book. Thank you so much for watching my video today, and keep reading great books and chat with me in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Okay guys, keep reading great books. Until next time, bye-bye.